Me, 36F, interacting with weird, 40-ish M in gaming group situation. Really, non-romantic. Okay, first of all there's me. A 36 years old female, some geeky tendencies, but more of a science nerd. Glasses, short dark hair, questionable fashion sense, slightly overweight, divorced a year or so ago, not interested in dating at all. But worked in social jobs for many years, so can smile and chit-chat without staring at my shoes like a mostly normal human. Second on our cast of characters, there's this dude, let's call him Bob, because that isn't his name. I met him at a local board gaming group. He honestly, not making this up, has a neckbeard, wears a dingy old trench coat when it is cold, and owns at least one fedora. He probably weighs north of 400 pounds. He's very socially awkward. But seriously folks, it's a gaming group. Pretty much everyone is awkward. After attending a few gaming meets and chatting with multiple people, it became obvious that Bob and I share some superficial interests. I mentioned an obscure film I was planning to attend, and Bob asked if he could tag along. I hesitated, knowing there was some risk that he'd fixate on me, but decided to give him the benefit of the doubt. I mean, fuck it, I can be friends with the weird, heavy, trenchcoat guy, right? All people need friends, and it'd be nice to have a friend who liked some of the same obscura. Anyway, I'd been open with a group about being divorced and enjoying being by myself, not wanting a relationship. Additionally, at the time of the movie conversations, I actually said out loud to him, okay, it would be cool if a friend comes with me. At the film, while waiting for it to start, we were discussing families, the do you have any siblings type small talk, and in this context I again said that I just got out of a difficult relationship, and I'm not looking for or interested in a relationship right now. I really enjoy being single. Our interaction at the movie was basically fine with a few awkward pauses, and we parted ways pleasantly. I figured everything was fine, I was making a new friend, and went on my merry, blithe way. Oh, how wrong I was. A few weeks later, there was another gaming meet. Sometimes folks got together for a drink afterwards, and it ended up being just me and Bob. Fine, whatever. Well, about 10 minutes into the conversation he told me he'd gotten us tickets to a gaming convention a few months and a few states away and asked about making plans to go. What? This was an event he'd mentioned in passing at the movie as something a few members of the group went to annually, and I'd said I don't usually do conventions but might consider getting myself a ticket. This con does not sell out. Tickets are still available day of. I was flabbergasted, and told him that I hadn't decided whether I wanted to go or not, and wasn't really planning to. He basically ignored that and said, well, when you want the ticket, it'll be here. Oh. I said, I really don't think I'll want it, so you might think about reselling it, and resolved to finish my drink and GTFO of the bar. As I was slamming my gimlet, he first said that then we should also go to a different convention together, then said that he'd found an old LinkedIn profile of mine and asked a question about it. Dude, you just told me that you'd been internet stalking me. Uncool. I just wanted to get out of there at this point, mumbled something about not having updated that profile in forever, said I had to go, left some money on the table and bailed. I had no desire to feed any more of his fantasy, which clearly ended with us flying away into the sunset on a pair of dragons with matching Tolkien-inscribed rings and me in a plump Leia costume. I stayed away from the gaming group for several weeks, mostly because a family member was having health issues and that ate my time, but I also didn't make an effort to go because I didn't want to see Bob. During that time he sent me a few text messages that I did not reply to, mostly inane stuff about his day, a few about things we should go to together, and one telling me he'd bought me some candy complete with inappropriate blushing smiley icon. I guess that was to lure me into replying so I could get the free candy and he could see me? I dunno. I mean, I'm adult, I can buy my own damn candy. Anyway, I'm really missing the gaming group, as everyone else there seems okay. I was planning to just show up at the meeting tonight until I got a text message from Bob inviting me to the group I'm already part of. Seriously? Now if I go, I feel like he'll think I'm going to meet him, which a big ole hella no. Yuck. This is a very unfamiliar situation for me as I've spent most of my adult life married, which seems to have allowed me to avoid this sort of thing. So, I have none of the clever tools that would allow me to dance out of this weirdness. Honestly, I'd just ditch the group and tell Bob I never want to see him again, and hope that would actually deter him, but I live in a very small city and would like to stay part of this group as there just aren't any other options. But obviously, I don't want any more of this dude's attention. Has anyone successfully navigated this type of situation? I don't really want to be mean, and suspect that being direct would cause him to either make me his constant target or to simply ignore it and continue to fixate. Maybe a bit of both, honestly. Help? TLDR, real-life sighting of mythical trenchcoat fedora neckbeard, complete with grainy photos. Nessie has decided that I'm his fedora queen and is going full creeper. How to stay part of fun social group in spite of being unwillingly cast as leading lady in his delusional reality. Relevant comments. Famous monster. You've been hanging out with a dude who fits, like a glove, a stereotype of people who are notoriously bad at picking up subtle cues, and you've been indicating your lack of availability via subtle cues. So that's your problem right there. Thankfully, the blushing smiley and the candy provide you with a route to talk to him about this. It's time to be direct. Before you go to the next meeting, you need to tell him this via email or whatever. Hi, Bob. I just wanted to send a quick message to be sure about something. I'm not always super great at reading situations, and my read on this one may be wrong, but I'd rather say something and be wrong than be unfair by not saying anything. Some of our interactions, the blushing smiley and note about the candy and whatnot, buying me tickets for a con I hadn't said I was definitely going to, and inviting me out to things, have felt an awful lot like you've been trying to pursue me romantically. If I'm wrong about that and you're just being friendly, I apologize for reading this the wrong way. But if I'm right, I need to be clear that while I think you're a great guy, butter him up in whatever way you deem appropriate. I'm sorry, but I'm not interested. Again, I apologize if I'm wrong about this. Thanks, and have a great day. If his reaction is in any way not completely cool, you should raise this with other people in the group. Nerds typically hate excluding people, but I guarantee you that you're not the first woman he's done this to, and you're not the first woman he's scared away from the group. OOP. Wow, is explicitly saying that I don't want to date multiple times a subtle clue? Not trying to argue at all, just honestly surprised. I think this is the best advice so far, as it allows him to save face by placing a potential misunderstanding on me, but also makes everything very clear. Hopefully that'll give him an okay mental space to detach in. Group-wise, I'm fairly new to the group, and Bob has been a main part of it for a couple years. Unfortunately, I'm certain that if this doesn't work I'd have a better time ditching the group than trying to get help from other members. Thank you for the advice. Famous monster. Wow, is explicitly saying that I don't want to date multiple times a subtle clue? Not trying to argue at all, just honestly surprised. Well, it wouldn't be to me, but to someone who's ignorant of other people's boundaries, it's subtle. Because you're saying you don't want to date. So what he hears is that right now you don't want to date anyone, which means he can put himself in position for when you do want to date someone. The thing about creepers like this dude is that they will take any out they can get if it means they can go on believing you want them. If you say, I don't want to date right now, they'll hear that you might want to date later. If you say, I'm not looking to date, they'll hear that they should stick around because when you do want to date, you'll want them. If you say, I don't want to ruin our friendship, they'll take it to mean you totally want them, but you just need to be convinced that dating them will only make your friendship better. Anything short of spelling it out in inescapable 10-foot-tall neon letters is not going to work. You have to be completely explicit. It sucks, because society really does not prepare us for rejecting others. But there it is. Hey, Bob. I was thinking about dropping by the gaming group tonight. I just wanted to send you a quick message about something, though. I'm not always great at reading situations, and my read on this one may be wrong, but I'd rather say something and be wrong than be unfair by not saying anything. Some of our interactions, buy me candy, other things he's done that might identify him, have felt an awful lot like you're trying to pursue me romantically. If I'm wrong and you're just being friendly, I apologize for reading that the wrong way. But if I'm right, I need to be clear that, while you seem like an okay guy, I'm not interested in dating. I go to the gaming group to play games and socialize, and I don't want either of us to be uncomfortable with that. Again, I apologize if I'm wrong about this. Thanks, and hope you're having a great day. And got back the following. Okay. No explosion, but no, hey, that's cool. See you tonight, either. So, I think I'll go to the group tonight and just see how he acts and go from there. Update the second. Sorry this one is a little anticlimactic, guys. I went to gaming night and he didn't show up. On a pleasant note, I had a great time with the group. On the other hand, I feel like the real reaction may still be coming. Guess we'll just wait and see. I'll post an update if anything interesting occurs. Update May 8, 2014, 6 days later. Background. If you have not already seen it, it is completely worth reading the original post here. Also, before we get into the crunchy bits, let me also preface this by stating explicitly that I'm writing with a light, right tone because this is one of those situations where if you don't laugh you'll end up crouched in the corner rocking on your heels, chewing your hair, and mumbling about space centipedes living in the wallpaper. And fuck space centipedes, man. Those buggers are wicked hard to get rid of once you get a proper infestation going. So, back to our two characters. When last we left them, there had been a brief exchange of text messages, and Bob was a no-show at game night. That was, however, not the end of things. A little over a day later, after Bob had proper time to really work up a good head full of insanity over the whole thing, I received a rambling, drunken 2 a.m. email. It was rife with misspellings, half-constructed sentences, ideas smashed together then pulled apart only to collide nonsensically later like bumper cars at the fair, extraneous words seemingly randomly scattered in all over the place, and really, deeply erratic spacebar and punctuation issues. There is way too much personal identifying info in the email to post the whole thing verbatim, and it is too incoherent to properly edit that stuff out and have any semblance of sense remain, so let me explain. No. There is too much. Let me sum up. Using quote format for ease of reading. It opened with an affirmation that he'd been trying to pursue me romantically, and noted that he was unskilled at such, but in a way that clearly asked for me to reassure him on this front. Then came the part of the note where he complimented me in the past tense, i.e. he did think I was a great person, and basically blamed me for perceiving his inappropriate ONS as poor behavior, and stating that he'd always treated me with respect. I'm fairly certain this was supposed to draw me back in, to be an opening to reconnect with him and give me a chance to prove to him that I really am that incredibly awesome girl he used to think I was. Because what female wouldn't want to be with a guy who could think they were so inconceivably great as long as they completely conformed to his fantasy? How could I not understand? Also, Bob, internet stalking is not respectful. He then noted that he did not want to be like another guy in the group who openly pursues women. Here's the difference, very forward guy, when I said I wasn't interested in dating, got the message, buggered off immediately, and hasn't bothered me since. Abrupt jump to a lament about how he has no one in town to do things with, and how it was great to have me for that. But then of course we can't do that anymore. To fully appreciate the tone here, just go ahead and picture a single tear drifting down the cheek of a sad puppy with unusually large eyes. More lamenting on how he's been emotionally destroyed by the whole experience. And here you may wish to recall, dear reader, that Bob and I have only met in person about 6 times, most of those in a group setting. Then things got interesting. An odd little section was tacked onto the bottom. It looked like this had been written separately, and in a rather different state of mind, possibly by a different person. He stated that he'd avoid gaming with me in the future if I wished, but said that I should still come to the group, and that he didn't want to be the reason I stopped attending. Unclear if putting big girl panties on or fishing for further future contact. You said this better than I did. In short, y'all, it was fucked up, but with a curious coda. For my reply, I kept the following in mind. Much of his email seemed to contain an assumption that there would be further conversation, or at least that I would feel the need to reply to something in that mess that was meant to incite me or make me feel sorry for him, and therefore further contact. He clearly wanted to continue contact if at all possible. Also, I got the distinct feeling he thought he could argue his side and I would somehow come around to it. I refused to be drawn into that. I made my reply email short, blunt, and to the point, removing any doubt that there was any possibility of anything else. I leaned a bit on the harsh side this time, but only because I firmly believed it was necessary. Here it is. Hey, Bob. Well, drunken. 2 a.m. email was probably not the optimal way to address this. Look, I am an adult and am fine gaming with anyone who is socially appropriate and civil. That said, I feel no desire or necessity to continue this conversation. Please do not reply or contact me further outside of the group. Thanks, done talk to Mepples. So that's where it is at. We'll see how that works out for me. I'll update if any further eruptions. TLDR, rejected creepy dude as gently as possible. He fills my inbox with emotional vomit. I invoke no contact. May the FSM bless us with his noodly goodness and bring this situation to a tangy, delicious ending with comfortable fullness to all involved. Relevant comments. Bisa, are cracking up at the stink of his desperation. You did good, OP. You did good. Oh OP. You know, the whole thing just makes me really sad. He is so caught up in his own head that he can't even be friends, which I would have been happy to be. The email was really all about him, not about how we relate at all, except for that last little bit, sort of. Who I really am as a person is both something has no idea about, and also is completely irrelevant to his process. I'm just someone with tits and a vagina in the way of his emotional freight train. I'm an NPC in the story of his life. Tilda. And Rihanna. Also, Bob, internet stalking is not respectful. Could you elaborate on this comment? I love everything else you've written in both of your posts. You're seriously hilarious, but I'm not quite understanding why looking up an old LinkedIn profile is a social faux pas. I do that all the time after meeting new people. Can you help me understand why it's inappropriate? Oh OP. Okay, 3 things here. First, I left some stuff out that made it plain that he'd been doing a serious search, trying to find everything he could. For example, he said, I didn't know your maiden name, so I couldn't really find anything. Second, and more importantly, context makes a huge difference. Say, in a professional networking session, I exchanged business cards with you. If I then received a LinkedIn request, cool. We were professionally networking, and that's correct protocol. Honestly, if I met someone new and they did a quick search on me to make sure I wasn't an axe murderer, and came across the LinkedIn profile, whatever. In that case, normally the person keeps the search to themselves, and we all proceed along with life, getting to know each other like normal people. However, doing a deep search on someone you recently met casually in a group situation, then creepily bringing it up after an awkward conversation paused by suddenly blurting out that you'd found their LinkedIn profile and asking them a really weird question about it, yeah, that'll probably creep them the fuck out. Plus, in my case, at that point, the conversation had already taken a weird turn, and the internet stalking revelation just added to the craziness. Third, motivation. This is a really, really gray area. But think of it this way, would you do the same search in the same social situation on a person that you're not at all attracted to? If yes, you're just curious, and that's pretty normal. If no, and the motivation of the search is to find out every little tidbit of information about that person because you must absolutely know and possess them, well that's dangerous waters. Anyway, you're probably fine. It really is a kind of gray area. But use common sense, and all will be okay. _to_Zoom. I took that to mean that it was quite old, possibly hadn't been updated in a while or was abandoned, and so you'd need to go through a fair bit of effort to find it in the first place. Or maybe OP has a common name so you'd need to be spending a lot of effort sorting through a million Jane Smiths to find her. I think there's a difference between discreetly looking someone up to verify they are not a psycho or check something they said, like what did he say his band was called, and researching or stalking them extensively as a means to gain an advantage over them or make the relationship feel closer artificially. To me the fact that Bob was going through all that effort to find what appears to be an obscure internet artifact about her, and brought it up, suggests he was stalking her rather than casually looking her up. OP. You are correct on both counts. The account had not been updated in more than 3 years, and I do have a fairly common name. I actually tried replicating the search, and it took some digging to find me. And even then, There were a few people in my old city with the same name in the same industry and no photo, so perhaps Bob's odd question was an effort to make sure he'd found the correct profile. I think there's a difference between discreetly looking someone up to verify they are not a psycho or check something they said, like what did he say his band was called, and researching or stalking them extensively as a means to gain an advantage over them or make the relationship feel closer artificially.